is the second chat that we're doing in English. It's very exciting because English is my native language. Much more comfortable in English and make a lot less mistakes. Last week we went over the chakras, and this week we're going to be reviewing what is actually going on and poured into your chakras. But before that, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Frances Fox. I'm a trained remote viewer. I am clairvoyant, which means I can see the other dimensions. Clairaudient, I can hear. Clairsentient, I can feel. That's in the third chakra, if you remember from last week. Claircognizant, which means I have an instantaneous knowing from my heart chakra, which the Greeks called intelligence of the heart. I'm a telepath. I can speak to animals. I can actually speak to walls, which is pretty scary. And I'm a healer, which means I can have the intention when something is bothering someone and have the intention to correct it, and a lot of times I can correct it. I learned all of this under very tough conditions, which I'm not going to go into today because I'm getting a little bit tired of my own story. It's real, but it's still very much a drama like a story. But what I can say is that we're all born for a reason, which usually is a much more important reason than what we think. And I had a mission, and I think I was not aware of what a mission was, but when I was very young, I had these words rolling through my head, which were, are you aware of the adults around me that were a little bit crazy? I was constantly, silently, I wouldn't have dared ever say it out loud, saying, are you aware? And like, this doesn't have to be like this. And nobody listened. I never actually expressed the words. Today I'm able to express them to all of you. And I would like for you to be aware of what's happening around you in your life, but in other dimensions. And I want to make you aware that inside of you, you have all of the skills necessary to be in touch with what's going on with you in the other dimensions. So I'm going to review very quickly again. And I tried to set it up previously so you wouldn't have to wait even 1 second for me to look for a graphic, but obviously that's not possible. What you're seeing on the graphic on the screen right now is your assemblage of bodies. This chat is all about you. And I do talk a little bit about myself. I tell a lot of stories, which is the way I teach. And it's actually the way most teachers throughout centuries have taught, through stories, not through what we call the scientific method, which is what is used today, but which a lot of us are not trusting that much. With a story, you can just ask your heart and your body to let you know if that story sounds true, and if that person who's saying that story is sounding sincere. And most of you will be able to, if you allow it, will be able to go, you know, that sounds true, even if it's like really weird. I say a lot of stories that may sound very weird because you haven't heard them before, but I've lived experiences that very few people have lived. And when you get into the other dimensions, a lot of really weird stuff happens, and a lot of people think it's like a dream. But the dream state is actually a part of you living. One of these parts are on screen in other dimensions, still a part of you. So that's the way I teach, and just keep yourself with your instincts available. And if something triggers, you can ask a question or you can send an email afterwards. Not as a personal thing or what happened to me, but you said this and it didn't quite sound right, or do you have a reference for that, whatever. So what's on camera, on screen, is you. Science says that there's 20 dimensions, and they can prove that there are 11, but they feel that they're up to 20. So what's going on in all those other dimensions? They don't quite know yet, but we don't have to wait for them to do the research because that's like a forever thing. They're not allowed to believe something until they can prove it. And they're not such great psychics, so a lot of what they're studying, it's going to take them forever to get there. But these bodies that are on screen have been talked about for centuries. So there are references to those green strings in the Lord's Prayer, the original Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, the way it was written. So let's review them very quickly because we went over them last week. All the way on the left, you have the physical body. That, and I left one of my sound therapy, videos on, and let me turn it off because it's going to get irritating after a while. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So the body all the way to the left is your physical body. You use it only in one incarnation, which is the one you're in right now. And it's disposable, totally disposable. Now, all of these bodies are what your consciousness, your mind uses on the different dimensions. On the physical dimension, you use the physical body. Very simple. The body next to it is called the etheric body. It's made up of a webbing of mind strings. Those green strings that you see there, they're laced together. They make a braid. And then at some point before you're born, there's a string, an etheric string that drops into the physical. And this etheric, I'm not sure where it drops into, but it drops into you, part of your assemblage, and it builds this body that is 1 inch larger than the physical body. It's a protection. It's like almost like the number one protection that God gave us. It is electrical in nature. The meridian system in Chinese acupuncture operates within the etheric body. It does not like fire, just like DNA. The only thing I believe that destroys DNA is fire, the fire element. The only thing that destroys your etheric is the fire element. The issue today is your little cell phone, all your electronic games, Wi-Fi, 5G, everything that's wireless radiates fire. And it's basically destroying your etheric body, which is your number one protection from all the other stuff that's going on in all the dimensions. So it would be important to pay attention and to moderate the amount of radiating devices you have near you, particularly when you're sleeping, because that's an awful lot of hours. That body is your immune system. They used to call it your health aura. Thousands of years ago, they called it your health aura. The next body is your astral body, which we used to call your emotional body. It's actually your desire body. So what you want, what you desire is what activates that body. It is your spirit. Let's go back to the blue one. When your physical body dies, the blue body, the etheric, doesn't die till 72 hours later. So when people like me hear about autopsies being done immediately after death, we cringe, because while that blue body is still alive, the etheric, you are basically still alive, because you are an assemblage of bodies. You're not just one. The gold body is your spirit. When your physical body dies, that is released completely from your assemblage of your multidimensional assemblage of bodies. It's released completely, and it goes wherever it is that it's supposed to go, needs to go, or wherever it gets stuck, which sometimes is too close to the physical dimension. But you can have more than one spirit, more than one astral body. How's that happen? That's a desire body. If you have a huge trauma, you are going to desire to get away from the trauma, and you can split. If you are the type of person, you or someone around you who is just fine and great and wonderful, but every once in a while completely loses it with rage, their faces change, and then when the rage goes away, they go back to being who they are, and their face comes back to what they normally are. That's a separate astral body that comes in. Something triggers it, the person loses control of their assemblage, and that separate astral body that's normally nicely tucked away someplace comes in, takes over, and you have a raging maniac on your hands. If you fall into an incredibly deep depression, you can have a separate astral body. Lots and lots of people have more than one astral desire body. That body travels at night. They call it astral travel. You've heard of that. But it can also travel during the day. And as I was saying today on the course, the online course that we're finishing putting together called Money Magic, I was working with a woman who had a child that was bedridden since she was born. When the child was totally dependent upon the mother, adored the mother, when the mother would walk out of the room, the child's astral body would separate from her physical and follow the mother, because the astral body is totally free and the child's physical body could not leave the bed. If you really, 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 really want to be with somebody, your spirit, your astral body can be with them. Even if you're stuck in school, in class, or if you're at home or you're in another country. A lot of people say they see me when they're at night or like before they go into surgery. This always shocked me years ago when people started to say it, or they would see me if they were having a really hard time, and then all of a sudden they could see me and they felt soothed by that. My desire that people not suffer and that they not go through a lot of anguish, or that they not be alone when they have a trauma, because I was alone so often when I was young, when I was traumatized. That strong desire has me to where I have more than one astral body that will go and be with people, to where apparently a part of me that I am not in control of can feel their need for somebody to be there, for something to be there. And that may be the case with you also. You don't know that. By the way, you don't have to be a saint to do that at all. You just have to have a strong intention to help people. So that body is the most interesting of all. And it is a very big part of the dance of karma, which is a very fascinating dance that we call the dance of life, to where things are not simple and they get very complicated with emotions. That is a reactive emotional body. Your astral body, your spirit, is a reactive emotional body, and it has the consciousness of a 2-year-old, which is a problem. And as we start to grow up, we're born and then we start to grow up, society teaches us to control our natural reactions to things, including our joy. We can't run around laughing our heads off if people go, wait, quiet down, come on, grow up. Because that body is naturally 2 years old in its reactions, whether it's rage or whether it's joy. It's not allowed, so it has to control itself. And that's why it splits so often, and you split off another astral body. So I'll say a second story about that. I was in a conference in Brazil, and there was a guru giving a speech. He was excellent, 500 people in the room. And he finished his speech and he said, now I'm going to give each and every one of you a healing. And of course, I thought, yeah, sure, 500 people, each and every one of us. I closed my eyes along with everybody else. And a few minutes later, I opened my eyes. He was still doing the healing, and there was one of him standing next to every single person in the room. He had duplicated himself 500 times. I was in awe. But you can do that if your intention is strong enough. And somebody like that, who has decades of training of consciousness and of focus, is able to do that and then bring himself back together. It's all about intention. His intention was to do that, and he did it. The law of intention is very important. It creates our reality, and that was a reality that he wanted to create. So that body is the most fascinating of all of them. It's a spoiled brat. It's difficult to control. If you control it, then it splits and hides another body, which is still part of you, over here, that comes out and takes over in times that are not so great. So understanding what it needs and trying to fill the needs of your spirit are very important. And one of the needs that is the most important are sexual. One of the things that causes that body to do all sorts of weird stuff is to being frustrated sexually. There's a very strong connection between that body and the second chakra, which is about sex. We're not going to go into more of that now. So we have that body reproduced again with those little colored spheres. Those colored spheres are chakras. Behind those colored spheres, you can barely see it, is a double terminated funnel that's aligned with the spine. That is your causal body. It's your center axis. It's the center of your universe. Your intentions from other lifetimes are within that. It's a funnel because from the top, it receives an energy, a nectar that comes from God or from wherever it is that it comes. It's poured into you. That's in the Bible. And I'm not Christian, I'm not Catholic, I'm not Buddhist, I'm not Jewish. I am an information expert. I'm multi-talented, having to do with the other dimensions. And with that, I bring information that I verify that my instincts tell me is correct, that fits into this model that is centuries old. So it's in the Bible. That doesn't mean I'm a biblical person, but the Bible has a lot of very valid pieces of information that support what it is that I see. And I put it out there for you to start connecting the dots with a lot of different things in your life. So that double terminated funnel, yesterday I made a decision. We're in end times. The Mayans said that the world as we know it is going to cease to exist. It did already several years ago, and then it did again with the virus, and it's going to do it again. We don't know what's coming next. So there really isn't a lot of time to be being very careful about things. That double terminated funnel is the Holy Grail. It's not that it's like the Holy Grail. It is the Holy Grail that's been sought out for centuries. Remember the Knights Templar during the Crusades, and they went around digging up graveyards where churches were, and I don't know if they killed people, but certainly it looked like they were very aggressive, looking for this chalice, this glass that had a lot of power, and whoever found it would be very powerful. Turns out we have it inside of all of us. All of us have a Holy Grail, where through the centuries it's been called the causal body. It doesn't die when your physical body dies. Neither does the gold one, that's the astral body. And it has all of your intentions in there from all the incarnations. It's very important. It's very hard to damage that body. The only thing that really I have found damages it is a really bad drug trip. Like if you do hard drugs and you have a bad trip and you really are never the same again, it's because it damaged that container of the nectar of your consciousness. Oh dear, throwing bracelets around. So try not to have bad drug trips because it's very hard to repair it. First place, it's very hard to harm it, and it's very hard to repair it, even though I did have somebody who did repair it. Many, many hours of mantras on a very, very long plane ride. So it can be repaired, but you need to take care of it. So from that double terminated funnel, which is the Holy Grail, your Holy Grail, the tree of life is symbolic of it, extend 72,000 strings, which in Buddhism they call them mind streams because they stream this nectar. I call them mind strings because they knot. They get knots. Those knots are mentioned in the original Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. They're mentioned in our current Pope's favorite prayer, which is to the Virgin, Mary Virgin, undoer of knots. You should look it up because it's fascinating. The references to the strings and to the knots, also the original Lord's Prayer, which we are going to be presenting you with a video in a couple of weeks on that, on the research I did on that. And it's very obvious that all of these things are referring to this assemblage of body, which again have been known about for centuries. What do I bring to the table? My remote viewing to where I can actually see them, see how they perform, see how they get defective, see how they change. And it helps to be able to have sketches of them simply because everything is easier if you can actually see it. It's not like you're operating in the dark. So those 72,000 mind strings have 5 extensions at the end, which channel the 5 elements: the air, wind, fire, and water. And then the 5th element, which is a type of galactic wind, air, which is an element that you need off planet. The fact that those strings have 5 elements, including the galactic wind, means that that part of you, which is a part of your mind, doesn't die either when your physical body dies. So your physical body dies, that's it. Returns to the earth never again. The etheric body goes away after 72 hours, does not die. These are bracelets, by the way. Let me put them down. Doesn't die. It goes away because it's going to come back. If you have an injury, like a client I had who had, I think, cancer in his knee when he was very young. It was like, wow, how did that happen so young? Previous lifetime, he got very frustrated and couldn't do anything about it, which are the 2 energies that are the basis for cancer. And he had an injury to his knee in that incarnation. And so he had a deep trauma plus a physical injury, which registered on the etheric body. The etheric body is a silent register of traumas in other incarnations. So he's born in this incarnation, that drops in to the physical body, and he's got a defective knee. So I lost my place in my mind. Okay, so that is a silent register of many lifetimes. Your defects, when they come with a huge trauma, which usually if you have a huge defect, there's a huge trauma associated, is registered on there, and then it repeats in this lifetime. And then you wonder, how can that be? Nothing ever happened. Why is he a great pianist? Or why does he have these skills? Or why can he not do that? And why is that leg doing that? Has to do with things that happened previously. So the center axis, your holy grail, and there's no question in my mind or when I teach it to people, but that this is the holy grail, is the deepest part of your mind. And the 72,000 strings that extend from it are like your subconscious, but not the deepest part. So those are the 2 sections of your mind, your holy grail and the mind strings. One of the reasons I call them strings is because when you start to work with them, you realize, darn, string theory. Those are the strings that are being sought after by the physicists that are looking for the resolution of string theory, which Einstein and Stephen Hawking, both of them wanted to understand string theory, to find it, because it has been said in the hard science, in physics, that once you resolve string theory, there are no questions left on planet Earth. Once you understand the strings, and the center axis is also a string, it's just big and fat, everything is explained. Why? Because though your mind creates your reality, and those are the 2 sections of your mind. The center, okay, is the deepest part, and then the 72,000 mind streams. I'm going to stop for a second to see if there's any questions, or even if I still have people here with me. How are you? How is everybody? Okay, everybody's saying hello. That's good. Give me a second to adjust this screen. One moment more. Okay. I'm trying to get some things off the screen to not mess myself up. There you go. Okay. So if you have been interested in string theory and you read up what I have said about mind strings, you will go, oh, that makes sense. In string theory, they're all hung up on black holes. What are black holes? Double terminated funnels. Do I know anything more about black holes? No, I don't. Because honestly, I'm interested in what's happening on planet Earth, in your life, in your daily life, in your daily routine. What is it that can make your life easier so that you suffer less and can have more joy? And the black holes and all that fascinating information is a little bit far away from what I consider my territory. But you can look it up, and somebody one day is going to apply this knowledge that I'm bringing to the table to what are the black holes. Again, I'm not going to go into that. So the chakras, which you see there in the colors, are 7 different places where mind strings have wrapped around and tied up the center axis, which is the Holy Grail, your Holy Grail. What's that all about? I don't know. You drop in when you're conceived into this channel. You're born, you're still just a channel of light. I witnessed that. I went to visit babies in a newborn section in a hospital. I also remote viewed them, but I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So I literally got in my car and went and stood and watched them from the window. So you're just a channel of light, like Jesus Christ. 2 or 3 days later, those strings start to cross over and knot in 7 different places. And those are called chakras. So this channel that's you, that has all your intentions and all the important baseline stuff about you, is sectioned off. The process of evolution is undoing those knots, those ties, those chakras. When people go, oh, my chakras, I go, oh God, they don't really know what chakras are. Chakras are a block to evolution, but apparently done on purpose for us to learn to unblock them. So what's important about this, and I always say the same example because it's just so clear. You have a mate. Okay, that has to do with the second chakra, which is sexuality. And you love them. So it's got the 4th chakra, which is heart. Okay, your mate is unfaithful. Whoa, screwed up your 2nd chakra, which is sexuality, broke your heart, which is your 4th chakra. So you do all this therapy on your sexuality, the sexual relations, trying to forgive on the 2nd chakra, because it's all about sex. They were unfaithful. But you never thought to go and clear your heart chakra. So you hate them for being unfaithful, but you still have this love for them in your heart chakra. And it creates all the confusion that you see in all the songs and movies, to where there's 2 things going on, the love and the hate. It's because your consciousness is sectioned off. So yes, somebody is coming in and say, English? Hi, Samuel. English on Wednesdays. And I'm trying to put it at a level to where a lot younger people can come in and understand. I'm not going into the last figure, which is 2 triangles, but that is a vehicle. All these bodies, the ancients called vehicles, that you use on the different dimensions. The physical body in the physical dimension, the etheric body in the etheric dimension, the astral spirit body on the 7 astral dimensions. See, they have a lot of dimensions. That's the interesting body. Your causal body, which is the grail, only operates on the causal dimension, and your mind strings are multidimensional. The thing that holds together this whole multidimensional assemblage of bodies are your mind strings. They interpenetrate each body in all the dimensions. It's what holds everything together. Your mind is multidimensional. And those strings are the mind-body connection. Now, the body all the way on the right is a vehicle. It's a body. Your consciousness uses it for galactic travel. Do we know a lot about that? No, we don't. We're not going into that. I limit myself to regular people's lives, not going off planet. But it has been said that if things get really bad on planet Earth and your assemblage of bodies is kind of aligned and you've kind of done a lot of your baseline work, that you would then dissolve into that double triangle, and you would be able to be released from the bondage and the horror of whatever it is that's going on in planet Earth. That's called the Merkaba. And several religions talk about it, so that information may be true. Okay, today's chat, after 29 minutes, is about the quality of the consciousness that is poured into your Holy Grail, that double terminated funnel, and then goes into the 72,000 mind strings. There are more, what shall I call them? This system of a large double terminated funnel with extensions of strings reproduces in several different levels in the physical body. And the one I'm the most familiar with is the one that we call the telomeres. And the telomeres have everything to do with aging. And it has been thought in science that if they can figure out the telomeres, they can figure out the aging issue and we can be ageless, we can live forever. No, they're wrong. Because that system, double terminated funnel, and the strings that extend at the telomere level only have 4 extensions at the end of the strings: water, air, fire, and earth. They don't have the 5th extension of Akasha, which is the galactic wind, which means they cannot survive off planet. So we are programmed, the physical body, to only live to a certain time and then to deteriorate and to die. That is not the case with everything else that's here on screen. Everything else is going to continue to live past the life of the physical body. So we should be spending a lot more time on these other bodies, on these other parts of us. Every one of you has that entire system. You're not missing any of it. So you should be spending time on that, because from there is where you create your reality. From there is where you get your major protection, the second body. The second protection, by the way, is that extension of strings that create a canopy around you 360 degrees. Okay. Many years ago, I was at a conference and I saw somebody and I thought, oh my God, that person's dolphin. I love dolphins. And I was like, God, that person is dolphin. So I for some reason, and I'm very instinctive and it usually works, I said, listen, I want to ask you a question. And I asked this question. So everybody there, everybody's listening to me, okay? I asked this question. So just listen to me. I said, do you want to go home? That person just jerked back. We were in the middle of a conference. And he went, what did you just do? I said, I just asked you if you wanted to go home. He said, well, yeah, when the conference is over, but obviously visibly shaken. I said to him, I think you're dolphin. He said, what do you mean? He said, I love dolphins. What do you mean? I said, I don't know, but I think that you're a dolphin. I think that you have dolphin running through you. That was the start of my search for this whole thing with how can some people be dolphin? What did I say? These are vehicles. And there's an energy that gets poured into them. So some of you have the exact same consciousness, nectar, that dolphins have poured into their dolphin body, poured into your physical bodies, poured into your whole assemblage. By the way, if that's your case, life is much more difficult than it is for the dolphins in the ocean. To be a dolphin, consciousness in a physical body, is very difficult, because the things dolphins need, which is constant movement in water and play and compassion and sensual and touch. They're not as sexual as people think. They're sensual. They're not as sexual. They don't have to have sex that often, but they need the touch. They need the closeness. They need the community. If you're dolphin consciousness, if that's a consciousness that's pouring into your Holy Grail, you're very neurotic and you think everything is your fault. These are characteristics that I have gleaned through the years. But there's other types of consciousness. Whale. Now, how would you know if you're whale? By the way, how many of you reacted to when I said, do you want to go home? How many of you felt like this jerk inside of you? There are people that are whale consciousness. Now, what are whale people consciousness like? They have a very heavy energy. They have a lot of addictions. They're very wise. Usually their bodies are heavier, not necessarily, but usually. And a lot of times they've had an experience where in the dream state, they are approached by the devil and they're terrified, but they stop the devil. Now, why it is that they have so many people who are whale consciousness have that experience, I'm not 100% sure. But in the Bible, the first thing God puts on planet Earth is nature, and the second thing is animals. The first animal that God put on the planet was the whale. They're very connected to the etheric body, the blue one, which is the body, it's your immune system, it's also your body of vitality. So if you're whale dolphin, whale consciousness, you'll feel a little bit beaten up a lot because the etheric body in humans is deteriorating due to radiation. And the etheric body of planet Earth, because planet Earth also has all these bodies, is deteriorating because of radiation. And whale consciousness people feel it. So the depression is due to the major depression that most whale people feel, which they hide, has to do with this incredible responsibility that they carry for preserving the structure and the integrity of planet Earth. Your etheric body preserves the structure and integrity of your system. It's the number one protective system. Whales are connected to that, having to do with the planet. And because the planet is so beaten up, they feel it. So they can go into pretty deep depressions, and they can have issues with alcohol and drugs because of this heaviness that they feel because of their responsibility. So when people say save the whales, they're saying save the whales because the whales are the ones that can save the planet. They're accurate in that. There are other people that are angelic in nature. The consciousness that is poured into them is the same consciousness as angels. Those angelic consciousness people are a little bit funny in the sense that they're full of compassion and love, and they're thrown into a world where that is not a major characteristic to make you successful. You may be sweet, but where did sweet get you in the economic competitive workforce? And where did sweet get you with other people that are not angelic? It didn't get you very far. And I know very little about angelic other than to say that if they're real, if when they're a child, that part of them is not protected and nurtured, they can end up becoming very bitter, and they can end up exhibiting characteristics that are very, very different from what their core is. They can become very unhappy. And unhappy at this level to where you wouldn't even know that they were angelic. They could be just like a bitch. And it turned out that their core values and needs were so stepped on and destroyed and slapped around by the way we live that they just basically put that away, walked away from it, and became very bitter. They're also not so good with bank accounts. Angelic, air. And have prosperity and money has very much to do with the physical dimension, which is the opposite of the air dimension. There are some people that are also ego consciousness. I really don't know very much about them. And there's several other types of consciousness that I'm not real familiar with. But the whale and the dolphin are 33% of planet Earth human beings are either whale or dolphin. That's what the majority of, that's the highest volume of consciousness. And there's others that are just very few people have it. But it's nice to know what type of consciousness you are, because then it's easier for you to understand your neurotic reaction to things, which it turns out is not really a neurotic reaction, but it's simply your needs are not getting met. Like dolphin. I'm a dolphin, and I know a lot of dolphins. Apparently dolphins end up in therapy a lot because they're sure that they're wrong. If somebody's unhappy, they're sure that they're the reason why the other person is unhappy. And whale people end up with a lot of addictions because they are suffering so much because of the work that they do for the planet, and because of their extreme exhaustion, because literally they're using their etheric body to sustain the etheric body of planet Earth. Every time there's a catastrophe, physical catastrophe on planet Earth, whale people are wiped out. And they can almost feel it coming, because things happen first, by the way, in the other dimensions. So, Rebecca, I gave descriptions of of what I know of the different consciousness. So I think you can ask God in a dream to tell you, but I think with those descriptions, you would probably already know. It's not a question of a scientist coming and telling you. It's not a test. It's an instinctive thing. So if you just let it sit and don't insist that some outside authority tell you what you are, but just kind of feel what feels more natural, and with the descriptions that I gave, you could probably figure it out, Rebecca, without a problem. Why would you want to figure it out? Because then you would kind of know, like, if you're angelic, that mean people would be really not the kind of people you want to be friends with. And working for an organization that's not really nice to the customers and hides stuff and lies is not going to be good for you. You're not going to evolve very well, because you're going to instinctively, you're going to go, that's not nice, that's not sweet, that's not compassionate. So living in a way that's compatible with what your core needs are, the needs of your mind, is very important for you to be happy. Okay. Yes, some people are saying they don't understand because they're used to me doing this 7 days a week in Spanish, and that's fine. A lot of our emotional reactions have to do with our baseline needs not being met, and the knowing what your consciousness is can make a huge difference. And you can, like me, wake up and go, I'm dolphin consciousness. That's not real compatible with my personality. Well, it turned out that since I was a child, because of being in this experimental program, my core was not allowed to flower, develop, shine. I actually had to hide these baseline characteristics. I'm not sure that I was ever in touch with my dolphin characteristics when I was a child. There was no place for it. And so as an adult, I have had to kind of give myself permission to be more who it is that I am. And it feels good, because I said to my therapist many years ago when I did intensive therapy recuperating from traumas, I said, being mentally ill is when your inside doesn't match your outside. When your personality is not matching your core. I didn't know all this stuff then, but I just made that statement. When your outside doesn't match the inside, if you lie a lot, your outside is not matching your inside. Why are you lying? There's something you're hiding from yourself, from whatever. So this information is kind of fun, but it also brings you a lot closer to being able to be happy. Okay? So, okay. So, give me 1 second and let me be thoughtful about, because I went over those consciousness very quickly. Give me 1 second. One of the things that you can do to help yourself, let's go back to the strings a minute. The strings, their shape is a clue to your state of mind. When you get depressed, the strings droop. Literally, you feel down, the strings are going down. When you get all confused, there's knots in the strings, so you can't have a straight thought. When you have ADD and you're distracted easily, the strings, rather than just being a smooth string with the 5 extensions at the end, the string is straight, goes up in a point, comes back down, straight, up in a point, comes back down, straight, up a point. What does that mean? When you have a thought, your thought runs along the string. So then your thought is running along the string and it hits something. And so it's like this, and then it comes back down again, and you're thinking about whatever you want to think about, then it goes back up again. And the example I give on this, and many of you might know that you're ADD already, or your kids, somebody telling us, an ADD person telling a story, and they'll say, oh, You're getting married, right? Oh, yeah, I'm getting married. You know, the other day I was in my car. Remember the blue car that I had? Yeah. Okay. Well, I was in my blue car and I was driving down the street. Did you know that they put in a new median strip on that street? Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going down the street and I noticed there's a lot of new stores on that street. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you there's a bridal shop there and I know you're getting married. Well, they wanted to tell you there's a bridal shop because you're getting married. But they told you about the blue car, and then they told you about the median strip that's there, and then they told you a lot of new stores. It's because when they go a lot down that line, that mind string, there are these bumps where they go up. Okay, so for all of you who are ADD, years ago, I'm sitting at a conference, and we're at tables where we're sitting across from each other, and I'm looking at the person in front of me, and her strings have these spikes. I didn't know this that I just told you now. And I'm looking at her strings and I'm going, what the heck is that? I didn't know the person. And that was when I was doing heavy duty research on the strings. I mean, it didn't matter who I looked at, a bus driver, the person at Publix, I was looking at their strings. So I'm looking at her and I go, oh my God, what is the matter with her? Okay, so we go to lunch, we come back, I'm still across from her. No spiking in her strings. They're totally flat. The way, what happened? What did she do? Is she sick? What? So, second day of the conference, I said, you know what? I'm going to do it because I'm a researcher and I'm curious and I'm going to get my information. I said to her, listen, I'm doing a little bit of research and I'm a remote viewer and I kind of noticed that your mind is a little bit unusual. And it's got like these little spikes. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm severely ADD. And I went, what? She said, yeah, I'm severely ADD. You know, ADD people are very distracted. And when you're a kid and you're ADD, you can't pay attention to the teacher. You're thinking about 10 things at a time. So I went, oh, okay. So I went, okay, so that's what ADD looks like. And then I said, yeah, but when you came back from lunch, you weren't ADD anymore. How did that happen? She said, oh, I took my Ritalin. So she was ADD. She has those spikes, which makes it hard for her to pay attention. She took her medicine and the spikes laid down and she was able to pay attention. Interesting. Every place the string spikes is like an antenna. So you're supposed to have a fluid thought. If you're ADD, because you've got this antenna and then you got another one and you've got another one. So like the girl driving the car, the blue car down the street with a new meridian strip and new stores, the person cannot stay on track with their own thoughts because they're very distracted. By the way, somebody from India contends that ADD has to do with the person being very evolved and their strings being very long and going into other dimensions. So my thought is, and always has been, that people that are ADD are very psychic people, very evolved. Their strings, remember the strings are multidimensional. They go from one dimension to the other, connecting all the bodies. But my contention is, yes, they're doing that, but they go beyond and they bump into spirits and they bump into things. And then the person gets like a little bit nutsies. And so they draw in their strings to kind of protect themselves from not going crazy with all this information. And then the strings end up being pulled back in, and rather than being smooth, they spike up. So that may help people having to do with ADD. Is there a mantra for ADD? Actually, there's an exercise, and the exercise is the Fox Mind Stretch. Let me write it down. I put my name on it. Why not? See, when I'm going to say something and my nose starts to bother me, those are spirits that would prefer I not say what I'm going to say next, which means that I'm going to say it because it's important. So you see all your strings. Let me see if I can get the other graphic that's just the strings, okay? We're going to do an exercise and then we're going to finish for the evening. And get me out of the picture. Okay, so you have all these strings. You have this nectar that comes in, and then breath is what controls the strings. See, man, they really don't want me to say this. So you have your nectar coming in, and it's going into the strings. If you're depressed, the strings are drooping. They can be grabbing on to your kid, your bank account, a man or a woman that you want, whatever. You're not supposed to be hanging on to things, by the way. That's why flow is so important, that the strings are simply supposed to flow. You can have this female you want over there or this male you want over there, and you're not supposed to be going like that with the fingers at the end of the string. When you don't have enough money in your bank account, or you are an earth sign and you really want to preserve all your bank account, your strings are going to be hanging onto your bank account. No, you just lost the flow. So you're not going to have more money because you just strangled your bank account. We do that all the time. So you don't really ever look like what you're seeing. You have strings doing all sorts of things, including holding on to the back of your neck because your neck aches. So you have thousands of strings. Any place you have pain, you have hundreds of thousands of strings holding there. If you got a stomach ache, they're going like this. And if you really would like to tell your boss to bug out, you have strings that are going like this to not say it. So you don't ever look like this. But let's say you're ADD and you're a little spiky, or let's say you're a little bit anxious or whatever. You do the mind stretch. You breathe, knowing that that breath is controlling the strings. Have the nectar coming in, and you breathe and you visualize the nectar going into all of the strings, and then you visualize the strings extending. Rather than being like this and grabbing onto stuff, you just visualize them extending very smoothly. They're not straight like that. They're like floating a little bit in water. So go ahead and do that, okay? Just breathe and visualize and intend on the breath and the nectar going inside all the strings, and they're smoothing out. They're smoothing out. Remember, you have strings in the back part of your body also. It's 360 degrees, like a round hairbrush. And I can see that in my back, the strings at the back are pushed up against my body. I don't know why. Let me get them soothed out. Any place you have a physical defect or a pain, you're going to have strings knotting there. So go and send breath and your consciousness there to get that untangled. And just keep breathing. And don't force the breath. If you're getting tired, you're forcing your breath. Just relax. Now, spirits get caught up in the strings. Did you notice how my voice changed? How it's softer? I'm a lot less anxious. I just did the Fox Mind Stretch. I'm a lot less anxious. I should have done it before the class. So just keep doing it for a couple of minutes. Ideally, they're Nile green. If you're very angry, they get red. If you're very depressed, they get black. Some people visualize they have a soft brush and they brush them out. They're less thin than a hair. So just visualize however it is that you would do it, that they brush out and that they extend, almost as if they were extending to the end of the, to like you were in a round room and they're extending to reach the walls. See, my coccyx is bothering me. I've been sitting too many hours, so I'm now going all the way down to the bottom of my body to where the coccyx is, which is at the end of the spine, and I see that there's a knot of strings there. And I'm opening them up. I'm opening that up, and there's an emotion there and a thought. I'm angry at having to do this busy work on the computer. I wish I had somebody that would do it for me. And so my mind got knotted there. This is your mind. My mind got knotted with the anger because I'm not going to show the anger. Who am I going to be angry at? Myself, that haven't hired the proper person? And it's subconscious anyway. I wasn't aware that that's why it's uncomfortable to sit today. So I'm breathing into it. And if I want to open up that particular knot more quickly, now that I know my issue, well, I could do it one of two ways. I could do an intention mantra. Please, God, help me with my intention to heal the pain in my coccyx. Okay? Or now that I know the issue is I'm angry at myself, I could just do, even though I'm angry, I don't have an assistant, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm angry, I don't have an assistant, I love and accept myself. That one really relaxed that area that's all knotted up. See how my breath even changed? Mind and breath, those strings and breath totally work together. If you can control your breath, you control your mind. You control your breath, you're controlling your strings. When you have a disease or you have an ache or pain, you're not breathing into that area. A lot of times, if something hurts, you can simply breathe into that area that hurts and you can get the pain to go away. But the reason the pain is going away is because your breath is releasing the strings that are clutching that area. You're shaking them all? Okay. Haven't tried that, but it might work. We wouldn't, it's really a vasana, a miasm, yeah, it's a congestion, but I wouldn't really use a miasm to refer to that, Liliana. I wouldn't. And if I have those, if I'm frustrated enough, I can end up with damage to my coccyx because those strings are very strong. I'll tell you how strong they are, and then we'll finish for the evening. And I want to thank you for joining me. And please share this with people that speak English and that want to learn more about spiritual things. This is baseline. Everything starts with this assemblage of bodies. Many years ago, I was in a private session with for martial arts. And I had learned martial arts when I was a child, and I hadn't done it for decades. But apparently that stuff stays in your muscles and you remember. So the martial artist is in front of me and we're kind of like, I don't remember exactly what was going on, but I remember I looked at him and I went, what is that with your chest? I was looking inside his energy field, his body. And he said, what? And I said, you got this stuff like crisscrossing. And he said, oh, I had iron shirt training. And I went, what's that? He said, we have a training, he said, and it's years long, but we have a training in which with our mind, we create an iron shirt. And even if somebody gets a knife and they try to knife us, the knife won't go through because we have iron shirt training. Do you know what iron shirt training was? The training was to take the strings and braid them so tightly that it created a braided shirt. Those strings are so strong that once they did that, a knife would not penetrate it. That's how strong those strings are. That's how powerful they are. That protection, that canopy, if you are in a car accident and 3 people get badly hurt and you didn't, those strings are the things that stopped you from being hurt. They're incredibly powerful. The problem is that they're usually not fanned out there like a peacock, but 360 degrees. they have a lot of holes in it because in my case, my coccyx is, I'm hanging on to something there. And then I had a surgery over here, and then, and you all have your issues that have strings attached to it. So there's like a lot of holes. If you slept on a bed next to a wall for 5 or 10 years, the string on that side of you are going to be shorter. Those of you that have kids, do not have their beds up against the wall. It's bad enough that we have our heads back against the wall, but the side is terrible. I mean, if I look at the person, they're totally lopsided. So those strings are part of your creative tool. The other part is the center, which is your Holy Grail. So we're ended. And I hope that if you found it interesting, that you share it. And I would like for you to ask, at what age group, they're shiny green, that's good. Do you think the way I'm sharing this now, how young can a person be that might be able to enjoy this? I haven't worked with young people for a long time, so I really have no idea. If you could give me your opinion, I would appreciate it. And do you have any idea? 15, 14, 13, 12? I have no idea. I'm glad you loved it. But I want to know, I want to share with kids, and I don't know if I'm speaking, your soul feels good? That's good. I'm 11 and your mom's with you. Was this okay with you? Was I speaking to adult? Your son is 9 and he understands. You had him in training for a long time, Estela, but that's good. You're 13, that's good. High schoolers would be able to understand. 26s, she should be able to understand. He loves it, that's good. 9, that's good. That's good. One of the reasons I want to get to the younger people is because they're very connected with what we are calling becoming masters of our destiny, but which kids call superpowers. Those strings that can create an iron shirt that a knife won't penetrate, those same strings, plus the Holy Grail part of it, give you superpowers, which society will deny that you have. But no, you do have it. The fact that you can study karate and break a board with your hand, which cannot possibly break a board or a concrete block, means that you have superpowers if you train your mind, which is why I started this with the whole thing having to do with the mind. I didn't place a lot of emphasis on that darn astral spirit body, the gold one, because that one is like a kid out of control. I want you to train your mind, the 2 sections, this Holy Grail, causal body, double terminated funnel, and the 72,000 mind streams, because we need your superpowers to either get the planet back on track or at least get our personal lives and our personal communities on track. We need superpowers today. We need people that are masters of their destiny. We need people that recognize what I was taught and what is taught in Tantric Buddhism, that we are all gods. Somehow we forgot. And it is denied to us by society that wants to keep us, for whatever reason, being less than what we really are. Okay? So we'll be back here again on Wednesday, and hopefully you'll share. And I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.